Let us get right into it. Daniel 11:40 And at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, and with horsemen, and with many ships, and he shall enter into the countries, and shall overflow and pass over. The time of the end began in 1798 as discussed in the comments on verse 35 in part 2 of this series. In Daniel 11 the king of the south was Egypt in verse 8. The king of the south in verses 14 and 15 was those who rule from Egypt. In verses 29 and 30 the king of the south was those who embody the spirit of Egypt, that is the pagan Roman emperor Licinius. In the Old Testament, Egypt serves as a model of idolatry and oppressive power. It is a land of bondage and oppression from which God delivers his people, paralleling the need for a new exodus in the face of Babylon's assimilation of Egyptian characteristics. This significance of Egypt is particularly highlighted in the book of Revelation, where allusions to the book of Exodus are abundant. See Revelation 11. Egypt symbolizes atheism and independence from God, a nation uninterested in acknowledging Yahweh or participating in his divine purpose. In Exodus 5:2 we read, And Pharaoh said, Who is the Lord, that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I know not the Lord, neither will I let Israel go. Its kings have their own gods and military might for self-protection. While the king of the north seeks to occupy Yahweh's place and role, the king of the south simply disregards him. Egypt thus represents non-Christian societies and nations dominated by secularism or atheism. And at the time of the end, 1798 till the second coming of Jesus, shall the king of the south, atheistic France with Napoleon as the king, push at him. In prior videos we have shown the transition of the king of the north from pagan Rome to Constantine and his use of Christian church to unite the pagans and Christians in one religion. And the king of the north become papal Rome, using civil powers to enforce her teachings and rulership. Here in verses 40 we see the re-emergence of the king of the south. The king of the south has been absent since verses 30. Who is the king of the south? Who is it that took down the king of the north at the time of the end? This is called the deadly wound in Revelation 13:3. This king of the south at that time of the French Revolution inflicted the deadly wound to the papacy by taking away its civil power in 1798. The phrase king of the south push at him literally could be translated the king of the south gored him. It therefore could be translated correctly the king of the south inflicted a deadly wound to the king of the north. The word push in Greek is nagta, but with the horns, figuratively to war against, to gore. This deadly wound is prophesied in Revelation 13:3. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. The deadly wound happened in 1798 when Napoleon's general Berthier and his army captured Pope Pius VI and unceremoniously removed him from the papal throne. There are reasons to think that the last part of verses 40 has not happened yet. The phrase in this verse, the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, and with horsemen, and with many ships, and he shall enter into the countries, and shall overflow and pass over, has probably not happened yet, although some see the fall of the Soviet Union as fulfilling this prophecy. The deadly wound spoken of in Revelation 13:3 has not yet been healed, although the healing has begun. The deadly wound is healed when the papacy is again controlling civil powers, enforcing his will. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Revelation 13:12. The earth and them which dwell therein worship the first beast, which is the papacy or the king of the north. And Daniel 11 verse 40, when the earth beast, which is Protestant America, shall make laws enforcing papal teachings. When the papacy's deadly wound is healed, then we can expect the fulfillment of the prophecy, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, and with horsemen, and with many ships, and he shall enter into the countries, and shall overflow and pass over. Since the first part of the verse was literal and not spiritual, we can expect the battle to be a literal battle with the speed and the destruction of a whirlwind. When our nation, the USA, shall so abjure the principles of its government as to enact a Sunday law, Protestantism will in this act join hands with Popery. This joining of hands/Sunday law will be the sign king of the north is restored to power. The king of the south is currently strong and present in many countries and political parties. Anarchy is seeking to sweep away all law, not only divine, but human. The centralizing of wealth and power, the vast combinations for the enriching of the few at the expense of the many, the combinations of the poorer classes for the defense of their interests and claims, the spirit of unrest, of riot and bloodshed. The worldwide dissemination of the same teachings that led to the French Revolution, all are tending to involve the whole world in a struggle similar to that which convulsed France. The king of the north will be battling the king of the south until verse 43, when the king of the south is defeated in or joins with the north in the final battle against God's people. Daniel 11:41. He shall enter also into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom, and Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. And the dragon was wrathful with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Revelation 12:17. Not only is the king of the north in conflict against the king of the south, but because it obtains its authority from the dragon. Revelation 13:2. They make war against God's people. The people of the earth will not easily relinquish their freedoms and persecute God's people, who are peaceful and harmless. To persuade people to follow the king of the north, also called the earth beast of Revelation 13:11-18, and Babylon the Great of Revelation 17, he will perform great wonders, so that he makes fire come down from heaven and performs miracles. Satan will personally assist in persuading the nations and earth people. In the last days Satan will appear as an angel of light, with great power and heavenly glory, and claim to be the Lord of the whole earth. He will declare that the Sabbath has been changed from the seventh to the first day of the week, and as Lord of the first day of the week he will present this spurious Sabbath as a test of loyalty to him. Then will take place the final fulfillment of the Revelator's prophecy. The glorious land prior to the cross was the nation of Israel, but the time of probation for Israel ended in AD 34 with the stoning of Stephen. Currently the glorious land is the people and churches that keep the commandments of God, and the faith of Jesus. Here is the patience of the saints, here are they that keep the commandments of God, and the faith of Jesus. Revelation 14:12. Many countries shall be overthrown. Daniel 11:41. He shall enter. Enter here means Sunday laws, also into the glorious land, meaning church militant plus shaking begins, and many shall be overthrown, meaning shaken out of God's church, but these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom, and Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. These are the assemble of the outcasts of Israel. There is a shaking of sifting which separates the wheat from the tares. In what religious bodies are the greater part of the followers of Christ now to be found? Without doubt, in the various churches pressing the Protestant faith. We cannot be too dogmatic in deciphering future prophecies. For example, in the times when Persia ruled the world, one might have speculated that Greece might be the kingdom that shall arise inferior to thee, the third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. As in Daniel 2:39. But the idea that the iron kingdom of Rome would conquer the world after Greece would be impossible to predict. Maybe China would be more likely. So the prophecies are more to help the people during the time of the event and to give them confidence in the Bible and the God that takes care of them during the crisis. Nevertheless, one must know the terminologies and the possibilities from prophecy in order to have confidence in the scriptures when the event happens, even though it may not happen exactly as we had thought. In verse 41, who are Edom, Moab, and the prominent people of Ammon that escape. And it says, Genesis 36 verse 1, now these are the generations of Esau, who is Edom. Genesis 19:36-38 it reads, Thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by their father. And the firstborn bare a son, and called his name Moab, the same is the father of the Moabites unto this day. And the younger, she also bare a son, and called his name Ben-Ammi, the same is the father of the children of Ammon unto this day. Since there are no nations today called Edom, Moab or Ammon, we must determine who these peoples represent in today's world. These were all related to Abraham. They were all not the chosen people of God and at times were enemies of God's people. In Galatians 3:29 it reads, And if ye be Christ's, then are ye Abraham's seed, and heirs according to the promise. Therefore God's people today are the true believers in Jesus. Therefore we look for a people or religious group that are now enemies of God's people, are similar and have a relationship with Abraham and are divided in three parts. Islam has persecuted the Christians for centuries. Islam had ties into Abraham and Jesus. Islam is divided into three. The 6 prophets according to the Quran are Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Muhammad. In the first centuries of Islam was divided into 3 major sects. These political divisions are well known as Sunni, Shia and Kharijites. Each sect developed several distinct jurisprudence systems reflecting their own understanding of the Islamic law during the course of the history of Islam. The I-bodies, descendants of the Kharijites, form a significant part of the present-day population of Oman, where they first settled in 686, and there are smaller concentrations of them in the Mzab of Algeria, Jerba in Tunisia, Jebel Nafusa in Libya, and Zanzibar. Kharijites initially divided into 5 major branches. But the other branches became extinct. Only the prominent branch survived until this day. That is the I-bodies branch. Daniel 11:41 He shall enter also into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom, and Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. It interesting that Daniel adds for clarification of the Amorites' main part indication that there were smaller branches. Just like the I-bodies branch was the main branch of the Khadijah, which is one of 3 branches of Islam. Another prophecy, that many believe, predicts that many in the Islamic faith will come to a belief in Jesus in the last days, is found in Isaiah 42. Isaiah 42:10-12. Sing unto the Lord a new song, sing unto the Lord a new song, and his praise from the end of the earth, ye that go down to the sea, and all that is therein, the isles, and the inhabitants thereof. Let the wilderness and the cities thereof lift up their voice, the villages that Kedar doth inhabit, let the inhabitants of the rocks sing, let them shout from the top of the mountains. Let them give glory unto the Lord, and declare his praise in the islands. Let us break this passage down. The Strong's Concordance states, Kedar, a son of Ishmael, also, collectively, Badawin, as his descendants or representatives. The Muslims in the Middle East claim to be descendant of Ishmael. Many have taken this as a prophecy of future belief in Jesus, among many in the Islamic faith, as their savior. Many in this faith of Islam, as some interpret this prophecy, will have a conversion experience and sing unto the Lord a new song, and his praise from the end of the earth, and those in the wilderness, deserts of Arabia, and the cities thereof will lift up their voice, those in the villages that Kedar, a representative of the Muslims, doth inhabit, will give glory unto the Lord, and declare his praise in the islands. The islands in Indonesia are where the majority of Muslims live, and Islam is the major religion there. Again in Daniel 11 verse 41 it says, But these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom, and Moab, and the chief of the children of Ammon. For someone to escape they must first be captive. Were the Muslim nations ever captive to the papacy? Or the Western Christian nations? In the aftermath of the First World War, the League of Nations, a forerunner to the United Nations, was established. One of its jobs was to divide up the conquered Ottoman lands. They sided with Germany and lost the First World War. It drew up mandates for the Arab world. Each mandate was supposed to be ruled by the British or French until such time as they are able to stand alone. The League was the one to draw up the borders we see on modern political maps of the Middle East. The borders were drawn without regard for the wishes of the people living there, along ethnic, geographic, or religious boundaries. They were truly arbitrary. It is important to note that even today, political borders in the Middle East do not indicate different groups of people. The differences between Iraqis, Syrians, Jordanians, etc. were entirely created by the Western colonizers as a method of dividing the Arabs against each other. Through the mandate system, the British and the French were able to get the control they wanted over the Middle East. Sharif Hussein, his sons were allowed to rule over these mandates under British protection. Prince Faisal was made king of Iraq and Syria, and Prince Abdullah was made king of Jordan. Saudis over Saudi Arabia. In practice, however, the British and French had real authority over these areas. In Joel 2:31 and 32 we read, The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before the great and the terrible day of the Lord come. And it shall come to pass, that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be delivered, same as Daniel 12:1. For in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance, as the Lord hath said, and in the remnant whom the Lord shall call. The shaking is here described in the book Testimonies Volume 5. We are in the shaking time, the time when everything that can be shaken will be shaken. The Lord will not excuse those who know the truth if they do not in word and deed obey his commands. The time is not far distant when the test will come to every soul. The mark of the beast will be urged upon us. Those who have step by step yielded to worldly demands and conformed to worldly customs will not find it a hard matter to yield to the powers that be, rather than subject themselves to derision, insult, threatened imprisonment, and death. The contest is between the commandments of God and the commandments of men. We continue with other spirit of prophecy statements. The great issue so near at hand, enforcement of Sunday laws, will weed out those whom God has not appointed, and he will have a pure, true, sanctified ministry prepared for the latter rain. When the law of God is made void, the church will be sifted by fiery trials, and a larger proportion than we now anticipate will give heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils. When the religion of Christ is most held in contempt, when his law is most despised, then should our zeal be the warmest and our courage and firmness the most unflinching. To stand in defense of truth and righteousness when the majority forsake us, to fight the battles of the Lord when champions are few, this will be our test. At this time we must gather warmth from the coldness of others, courage from their cowardice, and loyalty from their treason. The church may appear as about to fall, but it does not fall. It remains, while the sinners in Zion will be sifted out, the chaff separated from the precious wheat. This is a terrible ordeal, but nevertheless it must take place. On every occasion that persecution takes place, the witnesses make decisions, either for Christ or against him. Those who show sympathy for the men wrongly condemned, who are not bitter against them, show their attachment for Christ. Some had been shaken out and left by the way. The careless and indifferent, who did not join with those who prized victory and salvation enough to perseveringly plead and agonize for it, did not obtain it, and they were left behind in darkness. And their places were immediately filled by others taking hold of the truth and coming into the ranks. Cry made, behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. Revelation 18:2-4. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven, saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. The broken ranks will be filled up by those represented by Christ as coming in at the 11th hour. There are many with whom the Spirit of God is striving. The time of God's destructive judgments is the time of mercy for those who, now, have no opportunity to learn what is truth. Tenderly will the Lord look upon them. His heart of mercy is touched, his hand is still stretched out to save, while the door is closed to those who would not enter. Large numbers will be admitted who in these last days hear the truth for the first time. Letter 103, 1903. Standard after standard was left to trail in the dust as company after company from the Lord's army joined the foe, and tribe after tribe from the ranks of the enemy united with the commandment-keeping people of God. Revelation 13:12. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Isaiah 11:10-14. And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people, to it shall the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious. And it shall come to pass in that day, that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left, from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. The envy also of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not vex Ephraim. But they shall fly upon the shoulders of the Philistines toward the west, they shall spoil them of the east together, they shall lay their hand upon Edom and Moab, and the children of Ammon shall obey them. Daniel 11:42. He shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. The he in verse 42 is the king of the north. This king of the north is the beast out of the earth of Revelation 13 and Babylon in Revelation 17. The king of the north is consolidating world power by bringing under subjection the countries that have the ideology of Egypt. The ideology of Egypt is described in Revelation 11 and in Exodus. It is atheism, communism, and the ideas that spawned the French Revolution of 1793. Revelation 13:13 and 14. And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword, and did live. In the last days Satan will appear as an angel of light, with great power and heavenly glory, and claim to be the Lord of the whole earth. He will declare that the Sabbath has been changed from the seventh to the first day of the week, and as Lord of the first day of the week he will present this spurious Sabbath as a test of loyalty to him. Then will take place the final fulfillment of the Revelator's prophecies. Daniel 11:43. But he shall have power over the treasures of gold and of silver, and over all the precious things. This indicated that this church and government union will control the monetary system on the world. Libyans and the Ethiopians shall be at his steps. This phrase indicates that King of the North will now fulfill the prophecies that all the world will follow the beast. The last of the atheist and non-Christians religions and nations will now submit and follow the papal system. Revelation 13:15-17 And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand, or in their foreheads. And that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Daniel 11:44 But tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him, therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy, and utterly to make away many. The tidings out of the east and out of the north are the three angels' messages in Revelation 14. The power of this last message shall trouble him, therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy, and utterly to make away many. This will be a time of great persecution of God's people. Daniel 11:45 And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain, yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. He in this verse is the king of the north as described in prior verses. This papal church-state ruling power will come between the sea, which is people of the whole world, and the glorious holy mountain, which is people of God. When the promises peace and prosperity of the king of the north turns to violence and ruin of the world, the people of the world will turn on this world ruling power, but it will be too late. Probation will have closed and none shall help him, and it is also too late for the rejectors of God's love and grace. In the book of Revelation, the archenemy of God is depicted as assuming the role and characteristics of God himself, except for his holiness. There are three malevolent forces that come together, often referred to as the unholy trinity: the dragon, the beast from the sea, and the beast from the earth. Revelation 12-13. Their objective is to seize the position of God on earth. Throughout the book, this theme is explored in various ways. The beast from the sea closely imitates the role of Jesus, while the beast from the earth symbolizes the role of the Spirit. The dragon imitates the Father and is Satan. This is the role Satan has always desired. Isaiah 14:13-14 For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation, in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, I will be like the Most High. Revelation identifies the unity of these three powers as the mystical Babylon, which stands in opposition to God and his people. It is noteworthy that the concept of the end-time king of the north in Daniel embodies a power that imitates God, is now attributed to the three powers that comprise the end-time Babylon. Then I saw three evil spirits that looked like frogs. They came out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. They are spirits of demons performing miraculous signs, and they go out to the kings of the whole world, to gather them for the battle on the great day of God Almighty. Revelation 16:13-14. These powers achieved success in establishing a global coalition, as the kings willingly aligned themselves with the beast, pooling their power and authority. Together, they waged war against the Lamb. Revelation 17:13-14. This indicates that the king of the north, at the very least, represents what is referred to as Babylon in Revelation, the apocalyptic alliance formed by the unholy trinity. Once they garnered the support of the kings, these three powers gathered them together for the war intended for the great day of God Almighty. Revelation 16:14. This conflict against the faithful remnant is specifically introduced in Revelation 12:17, with the objective of exterminating those who refuse to worship the image of the beast. Revelation 13:15. The phrase "yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him" is confirmed in Revelation 17:16 In the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. In closing, I will share some words from the book Maranatha. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. Isaiah 24:5. The people of the United States have been a favored people, but when they restrict religious liberty, surrender Protestantism, and give countenance to popery, the measure of their guilt will be full, and national apostasy will be registered in the books of heaven. The result of this apostasy will be national ruin. By the decree enforcing the institution of the papacy in violation of the law of God, our nation will disconnect herself fully from righteousness. When Protestantism shall stretch her hand across the gulf to grasp the hand of the Roman power, when she shall reach over the abyss to clasp hands with spiritualism, when, under the influence of this threefold union, our country shall repudiate every principle of its constitution as a Protestant and Republican government, and shall make provision for the propagation of papal falsehoods and delusions, then we may know that the time has come for the marvelous working of Satan and that the end is near. Through spiritualism, Satan appears as a benefactor of the race, healing the diseases of the people, and professing to present a new and more exalted system of religious faith, but at the same time he works as a destroyer. While appearing to the children of men as a great physician who can heal all their maladies, he will bring disease and disaster, until populous cities are reduced to ruin and desolation. And then the great deceiver will persuade men that those who serve God are causing these evils. As men depart further and further from God, Satan is permitted to have power over the children of disobedience. He hurls destruction among men. There is calamity by land and sea. Property and life are destroyed by fire and flood. Satan resolves to charge this upon those who refuse to bow to the idol which he has set up. His agents point to Seventh-day Adventists as the cause of the trouble. These people stand out in defiance of law, they say. They desecrate Sunday. Were they compelled to obey the law for Sunday observance, there would be a cessation of these terrible judgments. Daniel 12:1 And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation even to that same time, and at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book.